The evening sky was painted with hues of amber and crimson, the air still carrying the warmth of summer. Inga's childhood home had always been a haven of laughter and simplicity, a contrast to the complexity of her adult life. Her parents, though firm, had instilled in her the belief that love required sacrifice. This upbringing had shaped Inga's perspective on relationships, an idealistic view that would later clash with reality. Years later, as a young woman, Inga met Harry during a bustling university lecture. His quiet demeanor and sharp wit intrigued her, pulling her into a whirlwind romance that culminated in marriage. Their early days were filled with passion and shared dreams, but over time, life's trials and routines began to wear them down. Harry's steadfast nature, once a source of comfort, now felt stagnant to Inga, who longed for a spark to reignite their bond. 5 months ago, Inga sat in her kitchen with her 2 children, Anakah, 20, and Bjorn, 18. The conversation revolved around her husband, Harry. Anakah criticized her mother, accusing her of being ungrateful and behaving immaturely despite having everything she could possibly want. Inga acknowledged the validity of her daughter's words, but confessed she craved something more, a change in Harry's demeanor. She felt he was too passive and wished he would show more assertiveness, even anger, from time to time. Bjorn, recalling past instances of his father's temper, was unsettled by the idea. He cautioned his mother, warning her about the unpredictability of pushing Harry to his limit. Undeterred, Inga revealed her plan to provoke Harry until he lost his patience. She believed this would force him to confront her and reignite a sense of tension in their relationship. Both Anakah and Bjorn opposed the scheme, with Bjorn outright refusing to be part of it and vowing to expose the plan if Harry suffered as a result. Ignoring their concerns, Inga began implementing her plan the following morning. She started with petty provocations, criticizing Harry over trivial matters like his coffee making. Confused but unwilling to engage in conflict, Harry tried to remain calm, brushing off her escalating criticisms. Over the course of their family vacation, Inga's behavior intensified, crossing into outright humiliation. Harry, though visibly strained, remained composed, bottling up his frustration. During a tense drive to their campsite, Harry focused on containing his emotions, refusing to let her taunts provoke him. Upon arrival, they set up camp in silence, and after a quiet meal, Harry took a long walk to clear his mind. By the time he returned, he felt refreshed, his mood noticeably improved. However, the situation quickly took another turn. Inga was at the far end of the campsite, socializing with other campers. When Harry approached her to suggest dinner, she dismissed him in front of the group, mocking him openly and turning her attention to one of the men beside her. Humiliated and furious, Harry withdrew to the caravan, finally reaching his breaking point. He decided he had endured enough. Quietly, he set his plan into motion. He withdrew as much money as possible from their accounts, opened a new bank account, and updated his employer about the situation. His boss granted him an extended leave, understanding the gravity of his predicament. Late that night, Inga returned to the caravan heavily intoxicated. She reeked of alcohol and the remnants of her flirtations. Oblivious to Harry's state of mind, she attempted to engage with him, but he coldly rejected her. His tone, sharp and venomous, made it clear that he was finished with her manipulations. Inga, too drunk to comprehend, collapsed into bed without realizing the consequences of her actions. Harry, however, had already made his decision. By morning, their relationship as they knew it would be irrevocably changed. The morning after her drunken antics, Inga woke with nausea, a pounding headache, and regret heavy in her chest. Harry was nowhere in sight. Stumbling out of bed, she barely made it outside before succumbing to another wave of sickness. When her eyes adjusted to the bright morning light, she saw Harry calmly eating breakfast at a table set with fresh croissants, orange juice, and coffee. He regarded her with a cold, mocking expression, cutting straight to the point. He handed her the car keys, the caravan papers, and the bank cards, announcing he was leaving. Inga, disoriented, managed to ask when he'd return, but Harry's response was sharp and final. He wasn't coming back, and this was goodbye. Panicking, Inga tried to protest, claiming her actions were only meant to spark a reaction from him. She confessed that she wanted him to be stronger, to stand up for himself, and to show anger. Harry, his tone laced with bitter sarcasm, informed her that she'd succeeded. He was furious. However, his anger came with clarity. Her recent behavior, especially her humiliating actions the day before, had made it easy for him to walk away. He advised her to get tested for diseases, his words cutting deep as he revealed his disgust. Without waiting for a response, Harry shouldered his backpack and left. Inga was left sobbing uncontrollably. Overwhelmed by physical discomfort and emotional devastation, she retreated to the caravan and passed out on the bed. Meanwhile, Harry walked away from the campsite, his thoughts dark and heavy. Leaving had been the simplest decision he'd ever made, but the weight of ending his marriage still pressed on him. By evening, he found himself at a boarding house, drained and hollow. Alone in his room, he reflected on the betrayal and humiliation, realizing he could tolerate many things, but infidelity was an unforgivable line. At the same time, Inga awoke in the caravan, her body still weak and her mind clouded. Struggling to piece together the previous night's events, she began to understand the gravity of her actions. Harry had always been patient and forgiving, but she knew her recent treatment of him, coupled with her indiscretions, had shattered the foundation of their relationship. She stumbled to the shower, hoping to cleanse herself of her shame and guilt, but no amount of scrubbing could erase the sense of filth that clung to her. She cried under the hot water, mourning the destruction of her marriage. Harry, meanwhile, sat in his room, his tears spent and his mind working through his next steps. He resolved to move forward with dissolving the marriage. The logistics seemed straightforward, but he needed a place to live. Reaching out to his boss, he explained his predicament and received assurance that the company would assist him with housing. Determined to rebuild his life, he began searching for apartments nearby. Back at the campsite, Inga returned to the caravan, the stench of the previous night's chaos still lingering. Feeling too ashamed to involve her children or face anyone, she focused on cleaning and tidying, trying to distract herself from the overwhelming sense of loss. Once the space was livable again, she sat down outside, unable to shake the weight of her guilt, wondering how she had let things spiral so far out of control. As Inga pieced together memories of her behavior the previous day, she was horrified by what she had done. Lost in thought, the ringing phone startled her. It was her daughter, Anakah, asking why she hadn't answered earlier and expressing concern about not being able to reach Harry. Hesitantly, Inga admitted they had fought. Anakah's tone sharpened, sensing the gravity of the situation. Inga revealed that Harry had left, tossing her car keys, documents, and bank cards at her before walking away with his backpack. Shocked, Anakah demanded to know what Inga had said to drive him to such an extreme. Realizing there was no way to downplay the events, Inga recounted the fight, including the public humiliation and harsh words she had thrown at Harry. Anakah, appalled, berated her mother for pushing things too far. She made it clear she wouldn't intervene or help her mother fix the situation. She advised Inga to figure out how to manage on her own, including finding a way home, as she had no intention of coming to the rescue. Anakah ended the call, leaving Inga to face the consequences alone. Anakah immediately tried calling Harry. After several attempts, she finally reached him. His voice, though familiar, carried a strain she had never heard before. Harry confirmed what Inga had told her, explaining that the breaking point had come when Inga publicly disrespected him in front of others. He declared the marriage over and shared that his employer had helped secure him an apartment and a lawyer. He planned to move out of the house and would send Anakah his new address once settled. Hearing her father's calm yet resolute tone, Anakah was deeply unsettled. Harry had always been patient and loving toward Inga, but now he spoke of her with cold detachment. When she asked who would break the news to Bjorn, Harry insisted Inga should explain everything. He only wanted Anakah to share that the marriage was over, sparing Bjorn the painful details. After the call, Anakah quietly cried, while Harry felt more determined than ever to leave his marriage behind. Reflecting on his past, he recalled a heartbreak in his youth when his first love had cheated on him. That experience had hardened his resolve to never endure such humiliation again. His marriage to Inga had followed a similar pattern, years of love and loyalty undone by betrayal. Harry packed his belongings and headed to the bus station, determined to start anew. For him, the pain of walking away was far better than living in the shadow of infidelity. The morning after leaving Inga, Harry sat in what used to be his home, sipping coffee. Sleep-deprived from a night of packing essentials and family heirlooms, including a 250-year-old clock, he was ready to move on but hadn't yet arranged for a moving van. He knew Inga would be gone for the day, so he planned to meet his boss, Gerard Dirksen, and the company's lawyer at the office. At the meeting, Gerard greeted Harry warmly, expressing concern for his well-being. Harry, visibly drained, confirmed he wanted the divorce finalized as soon as possible. Gerard introduced him to Ella Hervier, a lawyer who would handle the case. After a brief exchange of contact information, the lawyer left and Gerard dropped the formalities. Gerard then presented Harry with two housing options, one in the city and another in the suburbs, closer to public transport. Without hesitation, Harry chose the suburban apartment, preferring its quiet setting. Relieved, Gerard handed him the keys, explaining that the company would deduct the modest rent from his paycheck. He also offered a company truck and assistance from Harold to move Harry's belongings. After a brief tour of the apartment, a third-floor walk-up with a view of a park, Harry decided he only needed a few essentials from the old house. Within 2 hours, he had loaded the truck with personal items, bedding, and necessities. Before leaving, he left Inga a note, explaining she would soon hear from his lawyer. Meanwhile, Inga was stranded at the campsite, furious and panicked. Harry had left her with the car and caravan, but without a driver's license, she was stuck. For years, she had relied on public transportation and Harry to get around. Now, faced with the challenge of returning home, she realized she had missed the last bus of the day. The next wouldn't arrive until morning. Desperate, Inga searched for help among her fellow campers, only to discover they had left early that morning. Attempts to call Anakah and Bejorn were met with silence, as neither answered her calls. With no options left, she returned to the caravan in despair. Tears streaming down her face, she began cleaning up, wishing this mess was the worst she would ever have to face. The next morning, Inga dragged herself toward the 7 a.m. bus, exhausted after a sleepless night. Along the way, the campground manager informed her the first bus was reserved for locals and that she'd need to wait for the next one at 8 a.m. Undeterred, she kept walking, hoping to reach home and reconcile with Harry. When she finally arrived at their street, everything appeared calm and unchanged. A passing truck briefly caught her attention, but silence soon engulfed her as she approached the front door. Unlocking it, she called out for Harry, but the house was eerily quiet. The absence of the familiar ticking from the antique clock, a family heirloom, struck her immediately. Rushing through the house, she found Harry's belongings gone, books, CDs, and even personal items from the bedroom. Sinking into a chair, Inga tried to process what had happened. She had hoped for a confrontation where Harry could express his anger and she could beg for forgiveness. Instead, he had simply vanished, cutting her off entirely. A memory of Harry's words to their children haunted her. Anger means someone still cares. Indifference means they've stopped feeling anything for you. Realizing he had now turned this indifference toward her, she felt a chill run down her spine. Spotting an envelope on the kitchen counter, she tore it open. The brief note inside read, "Inga, I have been humiliated enough. This marriage is over. I've hired a lawyer. You should do the same." The absence of Harry's signature made her angrier. In frustration, she hurled a teapot and cup across the kitchen, shattering them. Months later, Harry had settled into a steady routine. Days blurred into work, eat, sleep, repeat. His focus on his career paid off with significant bonuses, which he began investing in plans for a new home. The divorce had dragged on, with Inga trying every tactic to engage him, but he refused all contact. Financially, the separation was straightforward. Their incomes and assets were nearly equal. The family home, now paid off, was estimated to sell for over $500,000. As Harry envisioned his future, he sought a house with a garden for working on his motorcycle, space for a library, and a kitchen fit for his culinary interests. With these goals in mind, he contacted a reputable real estate agent. To mark this bittersweet chapter, he treated himself to a concert of Brahms's German Requiem. That evening, still moved by the music, Harry stopped at a nearby pub for a drink. As he sipped a Dutch Genever, a voice called out, Harry Vandergoos, is that you?" Turning, he saw a tall woman smiling at him. "Do I know you?" he asked, puzzled. The woman laughed. "We went to school together. I'm Eveina Gedhart, though. I go by Eve now. I always admired you. You were so reserved and kind. I was too busy being part of the popular crowd back then." Harry searched his memory but couldn't place her. Smiling politely, he replied, "I should remember someone as striking as you, but I don't. My apologies. May I offer you a drink as an apology?" Eveina shook her head. "I'd love to, but I'm on a terrible date. Maybe another time? Can I get your number?" Before Harry could respond, a burly man appeared, growling at Eveina. "Come on, baby, let's go. This is our date, and you're going to enjoy it with a real man." Harry, watching the interaction, raised his glass, amused yet curious about this unexpected encounter. Harry scribbled his number on a piece of paper and handed it to Eveina, but her date stepped forward, sneering. He demanded Eveina return the paper, accusing her of sneaking around with a weakling. Eveina, clearly fed up, declared the date over, reminding the man that she only agreed to it as thanks for helping her with car trouble. She refused to get in a car with him, planning to call an Uber instead. The man, drunk and furious, raised his hand to strike her, but Harry acted faster. A sharp knee to the man's solar plexus left him gasping. Harry steadied him to avoid a fall and spoke firmly. "Here's the deal. You pay for the drinks and leave quietly. I'll call the Uber. Nod if you agree." The man, pale and in pain, complied, paid the tab, and staggered away. Eveina watched in stunned silence as Harry called her ride. When the Uber arrived, Harry paid the driver and wished Eveina good night. She stared at him, still processing what had just happened. "You were always the one helping people in school, but I never imagined you could take on someone so much bigger." Harry explained calmly, "I've practiced Krav Maga since I was a kid. It taught me discipline and how to channel anger constructively." With that, Eveina left, promising to call. The next day, Harry's phone rang. Eveina was on the other end, asking about his plans for her day off. He mentioned a house hunting appointment, but quickly invited her along, joking that a woman's perspective would prevent him from buying a cave. Eveina eagerly accepted, and they agreed to discuss details over dinner. That evening, Eveina arrived at Harry's place, dressed elegantly but nervous. Harry greeted her warmly, complimenting her appearance. She blushed, unused to such sincere praise. Dinner was simple yet impressive: melons with Parma ham for starters, lasagna for the main course, and Italian blue cheese with port for dessert. The strong wine paired beautifully, but left Eveina slightly tipsy by the end of the evening. As Harry prepared to drive her home, Eveina, feeling bold, confessed she'd rather stay the night with him. The words left her lips before she could stop them, and she flushed deeply, her embarrassment visible. Harry paused, surprised, then smiled gently, sensing the evening had taken an unexpected but meaningful turn. Harry couldn't help but smile, but he held firm to his principle of not being intimate with someone under the influence of alcohol. It was a rule he had followed since his youth, and one that his divorce had only strengthened. He wanted to take things slowly and avoid any chance of regret or misunderstanding. That evening, after driving Eveina home, she hesitated at the door, expressing a moment of insecurity. Harry reassured her with genuine warmth, leaving no doubt about how highly he regarded her. He explained his feelings and his intention to build a meaningful connection, not rush into anything fleeting. Eveina, deeply moved, appreciated his honesty and agreed to take things at a steady pace. They confirmed their plans to house hunt together the next day. The following morning, Harry arrived at Evelina's house feeling unexpectedly nervous. When she opened the door, her warm presence instantly put him at ease, though her appearance left him momentarily stunned. After a lighthearted exchange, they enjoyed a cozy breakfast together. Eveina then changed into practical attire for their day of house hunting, and they headed out to meet the real estate agent. At the meeting, the agent presented 4 properties, 1 in the city, 2 in the suburbs, and 1 in a nearby village. Harry, clear about his preference for a home with a garden, dismissed the city option immediately. As they toured the properties, one of the suburban homes was quickly ruled out for its lack of appeal. During the tour of the second suburban house, Harry began noticing red flags. The agent seemed overly attentive to Eveina, engaging her in charming conversation while glossing over critical details about the house. Growing suspicious, Harry discreetly searched for information on his phone and discovered that the property was significantly overpriced, by at least $100,000. It was also uncomfortably close to an airport, with the sound of passing planes disrupting the supposed tranquility of the neighborhood. Something about the agent's face struck Harry as familiar, though he couldn't place it. As the realization set in, Harry decided to end the charade. He saw through the agent's tactics, recognizing both the inflated price and the lack of professionalism in how he interacted with Eveina. Harry expressed his dissatisfaction bluntly, making it clear they would not be proceeding with the property and stating his intention to file a complaint with the agency. After leaving the property, Eveina, though surprised, understood Harry's reaction once he explained his concerns. Together, they decided to retrieve the keys to the final house and view it on their own. While en route, Eveina asked about her role in Harry's life, seeking clarity after the agent's earlier assumption. Harry admitted he had grown protective of her and expressed his desire to define their relationship more clearly. Eveina, after reflecting on her own feelings and experiences, agreed that their connection felt genuine and worth pursuing. By the time they reached the final property, an unspoken understanding had formed between them. Both recognized the potentials of what they were building together, a relationship founded on mutual respect, trust, and shared goals. For Eveina, this was a fresh start after an abusive past, and for Harry, it was a chance to rebuild his life with someone who valued his honesty and integrity. The house in Formont had potential, but its condition required closer inspection. Harry brought in specialists to assess its structural soundness and estimate the costs of a new roof and necessary repairs. Despite its flaws, the house was within his budget. Frustrated by his prior experience with a real estate agent, Harry made an aggressive bid, $50,000 below the asking price, and decided to wait. 3 weeks of negotiations later, Harry closed the deal. The owner was pleased with the final price, earning $10,000 more than anticipated, while Harry saved nearly $40,000 compared to the agency's initial listing. The agency, however, was far from happy, having lost a significant portion of their commission. Soon after, Harry received a lucrative new contract at work, prompting him to celebrate with Eveina over dinner. During the meal, Eveina mentioned her divorce settlement, explaining how her ex-husband's hidden wealth had come to light through his twin brother. She shared her concerns about shares her ex was still trying to reclaim. Harry promised to review the matter the following day. As the evening progressed, he asked if she was ready to meet his children, Anakah and Bejorn. Eveina agreed enthusiastically, recognizing it as a significant step forward in their relationship. 2 weeks later, Harry, Eveina, Anakah, and Bejorn gathered at a cozy Turkish restaurant, enjoying a lively meal filled with laughter and conversation. Eveina quickly won over both children, especially Anakah, as they teased their father and exchanged jokes. The evening was disrupted, however, when Ingga suddenly appeared at their table. Harry stiffened at the sight of her. Ingga, smirking, made a cruel remark about Eveina, insinuating she was just another one of Harry's flings before walking away. Stunned, Harry questioned how Ingga had known they were there. Anakah speculated that she might have followed one of them. While Harry and his children discussed the incident, Eveina excused herself to the restroom. When she returned, her demeanor had changed entirely. Flushed with anger, she accused Harry of mistreating Ingga and abruptly ended their relationship, storming out of the restaurant. Moments later, Ingga returned, visibly pleased with the chaos she had caused. Harry, his expression dark, dismissed her sharply, stating he'd rather die than have any further conversation with her. Turning to his children, he announced he would find Eveina to clear up the misunderstanding and left without another word. As Ingga prepared to follow him, Anakah stopped her. Furious, she told her mother she no longer considered her part of the family, cutting ties completely. Bjorn echoed Anakah's sentiments, adding his own sharp condemnation. Together, they walked out, leaving Ingga alone and fuming. The restaurant's owner approached Ingga, calmly but firmly requesting she leave, citing the disruption she had caused. When she resisted, he warned that the bouncer would intervene if necessary. Reluctantly, Ingga found herself outside, seething with anger. She replayed the events in her mind, frustrated by Harry's continued indifference and realizing she wouldn't find him again that night. The morning after the restaurant incident, Harry attempted to contact Eveina, but she refused all communication. Even the letter he sent was returned unopened. Devastated, Harry retreated into a monotonous routine of work and solitude, seeing no one outside of his children and colleagues when absolutely necessary. With Eveina gone, any inclination to socialize evaporated entirely. A few weeks later, Harry was summoned to the office of his company's CEO, Gerard Dirksen. To his surprise, lawyer Ella Hervier joined the meeting. The atmosphere was tense as Gerard brought up the company's no fraternization policy. Ella accused Harry of violating the clause by maintaining a relationship with a client, Eveina Gethart. Shocked, Harry explained that he had known Eveina before she became a client and had even introduced her to the company for her financial needs. Despite his explanation, Ella declared his contract terminated, citing fraternization as the official reason. She also demanded Harry turn over his laptop and phone, claiming they contained company information. Harry refused, stating both devices were personal property, and reminded them that confidentiality agreements pertain solely to account holders and their assigned managers, himself included. His calm but icy demeanor unnerved Gerard and Ella, who faltered under Harry's firm rebuttal. Before leaving, Harry warned that his lawyer would handle any wrongful termination claims. Months later, Harry walked out of court victorious. The company was ordered to pay him the full value of his remaining contract, including bonuses averaged over the past 3 years. The verdict cost the company dearly, as several account holders followed Harry to new ventures, transferring their business away from his former employer. Despite the company's accusations, the judge dismissed claims that Harry had stolen clients. That evening, Harry invited Anakah and Bjorn to celebrate, but beneath the surface, he struggled emotionally. His home, now complete with a library, spacious kitchen, guest rooms, and an outbuilding with a gym and pool, provided little solace. Although he maintained physical fitness through swimming and Krav Maga, his emotional wounds remained unhealed. Harry, burdened by insecurity and despair, decided he would never trust enough to enter another relationship. Anakah and Bejorn, worried about their father's withdrawal, met him for dinner at a restaurant, the same one where Eveina had left him weeks earlier. As they discussed ways to help him, they spotted Eveina entering with another man. Before they could react, Ingga appeared at their table. Anakah's frustration boiled over as she confronted her mother, demanding to know why she was there. Ingga insisted it was time for reconciliation, claiming she was still their mother. Bjorn, standing, firmly rejected her assertion. He reminded her of the harm she had caused their father, accusing her of nearly destroying him. He also suggested she may have had a role in Harry's firing, telling her she was unwelcome and to stay away from their family. In his own words, he told her to back off, making it clear there was no path to forgiveness. Anakah ignored her mother and dialed Harry's number. She assured him she and Bjorn would head to his house, bringing something for dinner, and cryptically mentioned the restaurant had become infested. As they left, a man intercepted them outside. Introducing himself as Jake Gethart, Evelina's brother, he revealed that their mother had deceived Eveina about Harry. Jake proposed a private meeting to discuss the situation, which Anakah quickly agreed to. Writing her number on a business card, she handed it to him and asked him to call soon, explaining that their father was sinking into isolation. Inside, Jake approached Eveina and encouraged her to give Harry another chance. He reminded her of her lingering feelings and insisted they resolve the misunderstanding before it was too late. Eveina hesitated but eventually agreed to let Jake set up a meeting with Harry's children. The next morning, Anakah received a call from Jake, who emphasized the urgency of addressing Evelina's feelings for Harry. Anakah confirmed the need for action, sharing her concerns about her father's growing depression. They arranged to meet at Jake's house later that day, with Bjorn joining as well. Anakah agreed to bring wine and beer, and Jake promised to prepare dinner. By early evening, 5 people were gathered around Jake's large kitchen table: Jake, his wife Lisa, Eveina, and Harry's children. Jake served a hearty meal of roasted chicken, vegetables, fresh bread, and chicken broth. Anakah, eager to address the issue, asked if they could talk while eating. Jake agreed, and Anakah turned to Eveina for an explanation of her sudden departure from the restaurant. Eveina admitted that Harry's ex-wife, Inga, had approached her in the restroom that evening. Inga claimed Harry had emotionally mistreated her during their marriage and had been unfaithful on vacation. Eveina, recalling her own abusive ex-husband, panicked and ran. Bjorn and Anakah refuted the story, revealing that Inga had reversed the truth. She had been the unfaithful one and had even orchestrated Harry's wrongful dismissal by fabricating an affair between him and Eveina. As the weight of her mistake sank in, Eveina became distraught, realizing she had been manipulated into leaving a good man. Anakah comforted her, suggesting there might still be a path to reconciliation with Harry. Lisa, Jake's wife, chimed in with a pragmatic suggestion. While there was hope for Eveina and Harry, Inga's interference remained a significant problem. Lisa proposed allowing Inga back into their lives under strict conditions. She must cease all contact with Harry and agree to psychiatric treatment for her issues. Though reluctant, Anakah and Bjorn saw merit in the idea and agreed to consider it. The group concluded the evening with a renewed sense of purpose. Anakah and Bjorn resolved to address their mother's behavior while planning how to help Harry and Eveina reconnect, hopeful for a brighter outcome. After a frustrating day, Harry swam laps in his pool until exhaustion overtook him. Physical activity was his escape, channeling his irritation into movement. At 47, his disciplined routine of swimming and Krav Maga had transformed his physique. Broad shoulders, toned arms, and a flat stomach required a new wardrobe, and his appearance was drawing attention from women and, occasionally, men. But Harry found the attention unwelcome. After 2 failed relationships, he had no interest in starting another. Earlier that day, a female client had pushed him to the limit, refusing to take no for an answer. She even threatened to move her business elsewhere. Unbothered, Harry suggested another firm and declined her advances. That evening, as his muscles ached and his lungs burned, he climbed out of the pool, dried off, and was heading inside when the doorbell rang. Checking the camera, he saw his ex-wife, Inga. Annoyed, Harry opened the door only to tell her firmly, "Whatever you want, the answer is no." Without giving her a chance to respond, he slammed the door and activated the security system, preparing for the possibility of needing a restraining order. Inga, however, had come with a plan. Armed with a fresh health certificate that cleared her of a year-long battle with syphilis, she believed she could win Harry back. Dressed to impress in a way that would have driven him wild years ago, she had spent hours preparing for the visit. Confident in her appearance, she rang the bell, but Harry's cold response shattered her confidence. Staring at the closed door, she fought back tears. Moments later, Harry's phone rang. Assuming it was Inga, he answered sharply, but softened when he realized it was his daughter, Anakah. She asked what Inga wanted, and Harry admitted he hadn't let her say a word. Anakah teased him, suggesting reconciliation wasn't on the table. Harry dismissed the idea, explaining that Inga's betrayal had left him emotionally hollow. While he urged Anakah to maintain a relationship with her mother, he was resolute that Inga had no place in his life. The conversation turned to Eveina, whose absence still weighed heavily on Harry. He confessed he had tried reaching her, but eventually gave up and blocked her number. Despite this, he admitted to dreaming about her, longing for a connection he feared was lost. Anakah, sensing her father's loneliness, suggested dinner at his place the following evening. Harry agreed, setting the time for 6. Excited, Anakah immediately called Eveina. She convinced her to join the dinner, planning a surprise reunion. Eveina, eager for the chance, quickly agreed and began planning what to wear. The next day, both women were determined to bring a spark of hope back into Harry's life. Inga had tried countless times to reconnect with her children, through letters, calls, and even visits to their doors. But every attempt ended in rejection. Her number was blocked, her letters ignored, and doors remained closed. Desperate, she reached out to Anakah one more time. Anakah reluctantly answered, knowing this was the perfect opportunity to set conditions for any future relationship. Inga, emotional and pleading, asked what she needed to do to regain her children's trust. Anakah, seizing the moment, laid out 2 non-negotiable terms. Inga had to leave Harry alone and see a psychiatrist to address her obsessive behavior toward him. Though hesitant, Inga agreed, clinging to the hope of reconciliation. Internally, however, she believed she could eventually bypass these conditions. The next day, Anakah and Eveina arrived at Harry's house. Nervous but determined, Eveina followed Anakah's suggestion to surprise Harry in the pool. As she entered the gym and approached the pool, she saw Harry swimming vigorously, unaware of her presence. Gathering her courage, Eveina stepped into the water, not noticing the jets running at high speed. The current pulled her under, and she collided with Harry. Instinctively, he grabbed her, steadying them both as the current carried them to the side. Pressing the emergency button to stop the jets, Harry turned to see Evelina's panicked expression. Eveina, gasping for air, begged him not to chase her away. Confused, but calm, Harry asked how she had gotten in. Anakah called out from the gym door, taking responsibility. She invited them to join her in the kitchen, where coffee and tea awaited. Once seated, Anakah addressed her father directly. She admitted to meddling in his life, explaining that his unhappiness had prompted her and Bjorn to take action. Harry, still processing, asked about Evelina's presence. She quickly clarified her relationship to Jake, her brother, and offered to explain everything if Harry promised not to interrupt. Trusting his children, Harry agreed, ready to hear the full story. Eveina took a deep breath, glanced at Anakah for reassurance, and began to recount the chain of events that had led her back into Harry's life. Eveina began her story with a trembling voice, recounting her painful past. Her marriage had started as a dream, but quickly turned into a nightmare with escalating maltreatment. Only after a violent incident that sent her to the hospital was her husband jailed. She admitted her first date after the divorce, her meeting with Harry, had initially felt like a fresh start. But her ex-wife's lies during their dinner together had triggered memories of her abusive past. Panicking, she ran without giving Harry a chance to explain. Eveina explained how she later realized the truth, thanks to her brother Jake's insight. She tried to reach out, but Harry had already blocked her number. Fearful of rejection, she couldn't muster the courage to knock on his door until Anakah encouraged her to confront him. She confessed that her dramatic arrival at his pool had been an impulsive cry for attention. Harry listened in silence, his expression softening as she spoke. He acknowledged that he had missed her deeply, even dreaming of her, but he was hesitant. They both carried emotional scars, he said, and suggested they seek therapy together. Eveina agreed, her voice filled with relief and hope. Anakah then interjected, announcing that she and Bjorn had decided to let their mother, Inga, back into their lives under 2 conditions. She must stop interfering with Harry and agree to see a psychologist. Harry supported their decision, promising to remain civil for the sake of family harmony. though he made it clear he had no intention of rekindling any relationship with Inga. As the evening progressed, Eveina hesitated to leave. Harry reassured her she could stay, joking about the spare bedroom, though his teasing hinted otherwise. Later, as they lay together, Harry surprised Eveina by asking her to marry him. Stunned, she responded that she didn't need a ring to commit to him, but promised her unwavering loyalty. Harry accepted her words with a smile, sealing their bond in the simplicity of shared understanding. Eveina vowed to move out of her apartment and into Harry's home, ready to build a future together. Harry, embracing her, reminded her gently that her past no longer had power over her. Together, they began to imagine a life free of their burdens and filled with mutual trust and love. The following morning, Harry called Anakah and Bejorn to share his happy news. After breakfast, he and Eveina set out to gather her belongings and begin their new chapter together. A year later, Harry had just finished his swim and was watching Eveina glide through the water with slow, deliberate strokes. Her progress had been remarkable. She had overcome her hydrophobia. Satisfied, Harry hummed softly to himself as he made his way back to his office. On the way, he stopped by the mailbox, collected the day's mail, and dropped it onto his desk. Prioritizing coffee, he prepared 2 cups before settling in to sort through the stack. Eveina joined him shortly after, moving carefully in the aftermath of their shared intimacy the night before. She picked up the mail, noting an unstamped letter addressed to Harry personally. When Harry glanced at the handwriting, his mood shifted immediately. Recognizing it, he groaned, irritated that this had come despite promises made to the contrary. Eveina, observing his reaction, gently encouraged him to confront the letter, explaining its significance. She reminded him of discussions they'd had with Anakah and Bejorn about Inga's struggles and the impact counseling had on her. Though Harry resisted initially, he understood Evelina's insistence, and finally opened the envelope. The letter began with a surprising tone of familiarity as Inga addressed Harry warmly. She acknowledged her lingering feelings for him, while admitting she understood his complete detachment from her. She expressed regret over the destruction of their marriage, taking full responsibility for the pain and alienation she had caused. Counseling, she explained, had forced her to confront her jealousy and entitlement, leaving her deeply remorseful but unwilling to seek forgiveness, as she believed she did not deserve it. Inga revealed that her attempts to move on with other relationships had only highlighted her mistakes. She asked for one thing: the chance to be part of Harry's life again, not for her sake, but for the children's. She promised to respect his boundaries and avoid intruding on his life, but requested simple acknowledgement if they crossed paths. Hearing even a brief word from him would mean everything to her. After finishing the letter, Harry's expression remained inscrutable. He admitted he needed time to process its contents, unwilling to rush into any decisions or share his feelings immediately. Eveina, sensing his need for space, refrained from pressing further. Harry retreated to the garage to work on his vintage BMW motorcycle, attempting to distract himself. However, the letter weighed heavily on his mind, making it impossible to focus. By evening, Harry remained withdrawn, prompting Eveina to approach him with concern. She offered her support, but his frustration boiled over as he expressed feeling manipulated, as though his children and Eveina had pushed him into reading the letter. Shocked by the harshness of his words, Eveina tried to reassure him that no one had intended to pressure him. Harry, still pacing the room, questioned the discussions that had taken place behind his back, interpreting them as a form of persuasion. Though he promised to give the matter serious thought, he expressed his need to step away for a while. Harry concluded the conversation by announcing his plan to take the caravan to Limburg for a temporary escape. Eveina, caught off guard by his decision, recognized the depth of his emotions but understood his need to find clarity. She watched as he began making preparations, unsure of what the coming days would bring. The next morning, Harry set off on a drive south, his mind churning with frustration. It felt like every time he tried to move on, something from his past resurfaced. Adding insult to injury, the only campsite available was the one tied to the memories of his turbulent past. Meanwhile, Eveina was distraught and tried calling Anakah, but her attempts went unanswered. Desperate, she managed to reach Bjorn and shared her concerns. Harry had read Inga's letter the day before, and it hadn't gone well. He left that morning for Limburg, taking the caravan without a word beyond a terse farewell. Bjorn reassured Eveina, urging her to stay calm and trust that Harry would return once he had time to cool off. By afternoon, Harry arrived at the campsite. The location was picturesque, offering expansive views of the surrounding countryside. After setting up camp, he went out for dinner, hoping to distract himself. While exploring the grounds afterward, he spotted a familiar face at a neighboring site. It took only a moment for recognition to strike. The man was the real estate agent who had been involved with his ex-wife and had been part of the scandal that left her with syphilis. A surge of adrenaline hit Harry as he fought the urge to confront the man. Instead, he retreated to his caravan, where he spent the evening restless and deep in thought. The following morning, Harry visited the campground manager's office. When questioned about the men, the manager acknowledged their shady reputation but explained that without concrete evidence, little could be done. He hinted that surveillance cameras were already in place, but noted that the women seen entering the caravan appeared to do so willingly. The manager's cryptic comment that he knew nothing, referencing a famous line from Faulty Towers, gave Harry an idea. Returning to the campsite, Harry approached the men, adopting a friendly demeanor. He doubted they would recognize him after 3 years, and with his unkempt appearance. He offered them coffee, observing their red eyes and haggard expressions. The leader, who introduced himself as Abe, warily accepted. Abe mentioned an upcoming ladies' night and invited Harry to join them later with a strong drink. Harry agreed, seeing an opportunity to gather information. At 3 p.m., Harry arrived with his phone discreetly recording. He found Abe and another man entertaining a young woman named Bridget. As they chatted, Harry noticed Abe subtly encouraging Bridget to drink. The conversation turned disturbing when Abe bragged about past exploits, recounting how they had lured women, including Harry's ex-wife. He gloated about manipulating her into drunken compliance, and mocked the fallout when she contracted a venereal disease from them. Harry's anger simmered as he observed Abe coaxing Bridget into consuming more alcohol. After dinner, Bridget was visibly intoxicated but continued resisting their advances. Abe and his friend, now drunk themselves, became more aggressive. When Bridget refused to cooperate, Abe ominously referred to Daddy's helpers, a comment that raised the tension. Harry, ensuring the CCTV camera captured everything and his phone continued recording, decided to provoke them. He taunted the men about their syphilis, identifying himself as the ex-husband of the woman they had wronged. The revelation enraged Abe's companion, who demanded to know how Harry knew. Before Harry could respond further, Abe lunged at him, a knife suddenly appearing in his hand. Harry staggered backward and sank into a chair, bracing for what came next. The call came abruptly. Eveina informed Bjorn that Harry was in the hospital after being stabbed, and that the police were considering arresting him on charges of maltreatment. She didn't know the full details, but mentioned he needed surgery, which was why the hospital had contacted her. Eveina reassured Bjorn that she and Anakah would pick him up shortly so they could all head to the hospital together. Bjorn, shaken, quickly packed a bag for his father. During the drive, the car was mostly silent. Bjorn carefully kept his speed just below the limit, while Evelina's soft sobs broke the stillness. She muttered regret over giving Harry the letter, blaming it for setting events into motion. Anakah, though calm, pointed out that Harry wouldn't have sought confrontation unless absolutely necessary. His years of Krav Maga training had taught him restraint. If he fought, it was likely in self-defense. Anakah remarked on Harry's abilities, hinting that any aggressors were probably regretting their actions. 2 hours later, they arrived at the hospital and were met by a police officer, who introduced himself as Officer Janssens. After confirming their identities, Janssens explained that Harry was no longer a suspect. Surveillance footage and phone records had established that Harry acted in self-defense and had even prevented a woman from being attacked. 2 men had attacked him without provocation, and the officer remarked that they would undoubtedly regret targeting him. The group asked about Harry's condition, but Janssens admitted he didn't have details and directed them to speak with the medical staff. After navigating the hospital corridors, they found the right room. A nurse informed them that Harry was in surgery and that his injuries were serious, but not fatal. While he had lost a significant amount of blood, the team expected him to recover. She advised them to either wait at the hospital or rent a nearby guest room, promising to alert them as soon as Harry was out of surgery. Crossing the street to the guest house, the 3 settled in for a tense wait through the night. The steady beeping of hospital machines filtered into Harry's mind as he struggled to regain consciousness. Groggy and disoriented, he couldn't move his tongue or open his mouth to speak. A deep voice broke through his haze, addressing him by name and asking him to raise his hand if he could hear. Tentatively, Harry complied. The voice introduced itself as Dr. Derador and assured Harry that he was in recovery after narrowly escaping a fatal injury. The doctor promised to release Harry from his restraints and ease his discomfort before allowing his visitors to see him. Once the nurse removed the breathing tube, The doctor gestured for Eveina, Anakah, and Bjorn to enter the room. As they approached, the doctor muttered a comment about Harry's good fortune before leaving. Tears streamed down Evelina's face as she expressed guilt over giving Harry the letter. Harry, though weak, whispered a reassuring response. Despite the cost, he said, the situation had given him clarity about Inga's letter. Exhaustion overtook him, and he drifted back to sleep moments later. After their brief visit, Eveina and the children met with Dr. Derridor, who explained the extent of Harry's injuries. The knife had nicked a major vein, but timely surgery had stabilized him. The wound would take time to heal, and Harry would need to avoid strenuous activities, including martial arts, for at least 3 months. When Bjorn mentioned his father's Krav Maga training, the doctor nodded knowingly. Though he couldn't share specifics, he hinted that Harry's attackers had not fared well. One would likely need a cane for the rest of his life, while the other would rely on a feeding tube for the foreseeable future. A week later, Harry was back home, seated in his armchair with Inga's letter in his hands. Reflecting aloud, he admitted that his initial reaction to the letter had been to consider letting her back into his life for the children's sake. However, his time at the campground had revealed disturbing truths. The men he encountered there were the same ones Inga had been involved with years ago. In gaining their confidence, Harry had learned that Inga, not the men, had been the source of the venereal disease. Moreover, she had willingly participated in their activities, becoming intoxicated only afterward. These revelations confirmed that she had likely been unfaithful even before their marriage ended. With sadness in his voice, Harry stated that Inga would never be a part of his life again. However, he resolved to treat her with civility for the sake of Anakah and Bjorn, ensuring they wouldn't have to choose between their parents and family matters. He asked the 3 of them to respect his decision and avoid interfering. They silently agreed, understanding that Harry's resolve was final. After 2 weeks of rest, Dr. Derridor cleared Harry to begin exercising again. Initially, his sessions were closely monitored by a physical therapist, but after 6 weeks of running and sparring, Harry regained much of his strength. As he pushed through his routines, thoughts of his impending conversation with Inga weighed on his mind. He struggled to find the right approach, ultimately deciding to handle it in the moment and let the outcome unfold naturally. A week later, Harry arrived at the same restaurant where Inga had once attempted to sabotage his budding relationship with Eveina. The memory of that night no longer haunted him. Eveina and Harry had since built a strong, loving relationship. Their joint counseling sessions had helped Eveina overcome her insecurities, while Harry slowly rebuilt his ability to trust. When Inga entered the restaurant, Harry was surprised to see she wasn't alone. Rising from his seat, he waved as she approached with another woman. Observing the pair, he commented on her decision to bring someone along for what was meant to be a private conversation. Inga hesitated, visibly uncomfortable. This was not how she'd envisioned their meeting. Her counselor, who accompanied her for support, had warned her about difficult scenarios, but this reception was among the worst she had imagined. Suppressing her growing anxiety, Inga introduced the counselor, explaining her role in offering emotional guidance. Harry's expression hardened as he addressed the counselor. He noted that he, too, had sought professional help after the devastation Inga had caused, and added that the presence of her counselor seemed like another attempt to manipulate the situation. He gestured for them to sit, insisting they eat before discussing anything further. Throughout dinner, Harry remained calm, eating sparingly and barely touching his wine. His demeanor unnerved Inga, who was clearly struggling to contain her emotions. After dessert, Harry finally asked why she had wanted to meet. The bluntness of his question caught her off guard, and she struggled to respond. Before Inga could gather herself, her counselor intervened, accusing Harry of being dismissive and unhelpful. Harry countered firmly, stating that the counselor couldn't comprehend the depth of anguish Inga had inflicted. Turning his attention back to Inga, he pressed her. Did she even know why he had been hospitalized? Inga, shaken by Harry's icy demeanor, admitted she didn't know the details. Her children had avoided sharing anything specific. Harry, looking at both women, decided it was time to reveal the truth. He explained that after reading her letter, he had taken time to reflect and agreed to confront his past, only because those he loved, Anakah, Bjorn, and Eveina, had urged him to do so. He recounted his journey south, where the only available campsite turned out to be the very place tied to his worst memories. By a twist of fate, he encountered the 2 men with whom Inga had been involved years ago. Driven by a mix of anger and curiosity, he worked to earn their trust, successfully coaxing them into bragging about their exploits. As Harry detailed the conversation, Inga paled, realizing where this was headed. She had never imagined he would meet those men again, let alone uncover the full truth. Harry described how the men had admitted to coercing women and bragged about their encounters with her, including how she became intoxicated after willingly participating. To substantiate his claims, Harry revealed that he had recorded the interaction on his phone and captured footage via the campsite's CCTV cameras. When the counselor objected to hearing the recording, Harry dismissed her concerns, asserting that it was necessary to establish the full truth. As the recording played, Inga broke down, tears streaming as her deceptions were laid bare. By the time it ended, Harry's expression remained devoid of emotion, his voice steady as he summarized his conclusions. The evidence confirmed that Inga had not only betrayed him, but had also lied about the circumstances surrounding their breakup. Her actions had deeply humiliated him and violated their marriage vows, culminating in the chaos at the campsite. The weight of Harry's words hung heavily in the air. He ended the conversation decisively, referencing Inga's own dismissive remark from years prior. "Can't you see I'm in good company now? Kindly leave." Rising from his seat, Harry paid the bill and walked out, leaving Inga and her counselor behind. He returned home to Eveina, the woman who had brought love and stability back into his life, grateful to close the door on a painful chapter of his past.
Decades earlier, before the life-changing decision to marry, Maggie and I first crossed paths in a bustling college cafeteria. I was an overzealous law student buried in textbooks, while Maggie, with her paint-streaked fingers and bright laughter, instantly captivated everyone around her. She was an art major, the type of person who radiated creativity and curiosity. Our first conversation was brief, sparked by her borrowing a sugar packet from my table, but it planted a seed of intrigue that would flourish in the years to come. The first year of our relationship was tumultuous, yet exhilarating. Between juggling our studies and exploring our growing feelings, we often found ourselves sneaking away to late-night diners or quiet corners of campus to talk for hours. Maggie's unfiltered honesty contrasted with my meticulous nature, creating a balance that surprised and delighted us both. It was during these formative months that I realized Maggie wasn't just someone I wanted to date. She was the person I wanted to build a life with. After college, life pulled us in different directions. Maggie pursued her dream of studying at an art institute in Paris, while I accepted a demanding position at a prestigious law firm back home. The distance tested our commitment, but through long letters and sporadic visits, we managed to keep our love alive. During one particularly memorable trip to Paris, as we strolled under the twinkling lights of the Eiffel Tower, I proposed with a small sapphire ring. Her joyful yes still echoes in my memory as one of the happiest moments of my life. Our wedding was a modest yet heartfelt ceremony, held in the backyard of Maggie's childhood home. Surrounded by close friends and family, we promised to stand by each other through life's uncertainties. The day was filled with laughter, tears, and Maggie's signature creativity, as she had painted the table centerpieces herself. The highlight of the evening was our first dance, performed under a canopy of fairy lights as a live string quartet played softly in the background. In the early years of our marriage, we faced our share of challenges, from career struggles to financial worries. Despite the difficulties, we found solace in each other's unwavering support. Our bond deepened further with the birth of our daughter, Brandy, a spirited and curious child who quickly became the center of our world. Balancing parenthood with our ambitions was no easy feat, but we tackled it as a team, relying on mutual love and understanding. As Brandy grew older, life settled into a steady rhythm. Maggie's art began gaining recognition, and I found success in my legal career. We moved into a charming suburban home, complete with a small studio where Maggie could create freely. Yet, amid the comfort of routine, we occasionally yearned for the spark of spontaneity that had defined our early years. As I sat quietly at my desk, my thoughts wandered through the tapestry of memories created during the 30 years Maggie and I had spent as husband and wife. Among the many peaks and valleys of our journey together, one radiant memory stood out above the rest: our honeymoon. The vivid recollection of that unforgettable time in Hawaii, the shared experiences, and the deepened connection made me smile absent-mindedly. It wasn't merely a vacation. It was a tribute to the love that would guide the course of our lives. From the instant we set foot in Hawaii, it felt like we'd entered a paradise untouched by time. The pressures of daily life seem to evaporate, replaced by a calm that's almost impossible to put into words. I can still picture us walking side by side along the powdery shores of Waikiki, the ocean's gentle waves curling around our ankles. The air was thick with the sweet aroma of plumeria, a fragrance that seemed to mirror the warmth and serenity of the islands. Everything about it felt like a dream we never wanted to end. But the true magic of that time came not just from the stunning landscapes, but from the moments we shared. We ventured into dense rainforests, where hidden waterfalls tumbled into sparkling pools, leaving us in awe of nature's beauty. I'll never forget standing beside Maggie, marveling at the wild magnificence of it all, feeling closer to her with every passing moment. In Maui, we stayed in a cliffside villa with panoramic views that seemed to stretch into infinity. Each evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and pink, we'd hold each other, savoring the quiet and the love we felt so deeply. Our nights were even more enchanting. Candlelit dinners on the beach became our favorite tradition. Under a starlit sky, we feasted on fresh seafood and local delicacies. But it was the way Maggie looked at me, her eyes full of warmth and affection, that made those dinners unforgettable. Hawaii wasn't just a destination. It became a living symbol of our love story, a chapter of our lives that we would treasure forever. Sitting there at my desk, I couldn't help but reflect on how deeply that trip had impacted us. It solidified a connection that had already been strong and infused our relationship with a sense of joy and peace that lingered long after we returned. Decades later, those memories still felt as vivid as ever, and the gratitude I felt for Maggie in those magical days remained as strong as ever. Lost in thought, I was pulled back to the present when my secretary entered the room. She paused, her eyebrows lifting as she noticed the faraway look on my face and the unmistakable smile playing on my lips. "Jason, you've been in such a great mood lately," she teased. "What's your secret? Did you hit the jackpot or something?" Her words made me chuckle, and I realized how much lighter I'd been feeling. "It's Maggie," I admitted, my voice warm. "She's been so thoughtful and loving these past couple of weeks. For the first time in years, I feel genuinely appreciated." I hesitated, then added, "Honestly, it feels like we're back on our honeymoon. I catch myself thinking about her all the time. I even call her a few times a day just to hear her voice and tell her how much I love her." I shook my head, laughing softly. "I know I sound ridiculous, like some love-struck kid, but I don't care. I feel alive again, and I don't want this feeling to end." Maggie and I had always shared a strong and steady relationship, but after 3 decades, it was natural for the spark to dim a little. Yet, in the past 2 weeks, something had shifted. Maggie's playful energy, her affectionate gestures, and her passion had reignited something between us. I didn't question the change. I simply embraced it as a chance to reconnect and rediscover what made us fall in love in the first place. That evening, I decided it was time to surprise her with a gesture of my own. Leaving work earlier than usual, I stopped by the florist to pick up 24 roses, then added a heartfelt card, a bottle of her favorite wine, and a box of chocolate-covered cherries to my collection. On top of that, I'd secretly planned a 7-day cruise to celebrate our love, and I couldn't wait to share the news. Buoyed by excitement, I walked into the house through the garage, eager to see her reaction. Instead of Maggie, though, I found our daughter, Brandy, sitting at the kitchen table. I leaned down to kiss her on the forehead and asked with a grin, "Hey, sweetie, where's your mom?" What I didn't realize was that 2 weeks earlier, Maggie and Brandy had shared a conversation that had set all these unexpected and wonderful changes into motion. It was a moment that had reshaped everything and reignited the magic we thought was fading.
"Brandy, I really don't know about this," I admitted, my voice shaky as doubt weighed heavily on me. "I love your dad so much, and I can't shake the fear that going through with this will hurt him in ways I can't fix." "Mom," Brandy said, her tone firm but comforting as she leaned forward slightly. "Dad adores you and he'll understand. You've told me before that there are things you've wanted but never let yourself have. And let's face it, Dad's not getting any younger. This is just one time. He'd want you to be happy, even if it's a little unconventional." I exhaled slowly, my hands trembling in my lap. "I can't imagine telling him," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "The idea of looking him in the eye and admitting that I'm going on a date with another man. It's impossible. I could never." "Then you don't have to," Brandy said with a shrug, her calm demeanor almost unnerving. Let me take care of it. Alexander will be waiting for you at 7 o'clock at the restaurant. You'll leave by 6, and when Dad gets home, I'll explain everything. You'll get the chance to feel something new, something you've been longing for. A deep sigh escaped me, and I pressed my fingers to my temples, trying to ground myself. I don't know, Brandy. Yes, I said I'd go, but now that it's real, it feels wrong. What if this damages everything I've built with your father? How can I look at him knowing I've stepped into something like this? Mom, Brandy said gently, her voice softening. You don't have to carry that guilt. Over the next 2 weeks, focus on showing Dad how much you care. Remind him that he's everything to you. When I explain, he'll understand that this isn't about replacing him. It's just about stepping out of your comfort zone and allowing yourself a moment of joy. He'll see how much you still love him. Believe me, he's always given you what you need, hasn't he? I stared at her, conflicted. Her words rang true, but my heart still wavered. Slowly I nodded, the knot in my chest loosening just slightly. Maybe you're right, I murmured. It's just one evening, and it doesn't mean I'm abandoning your father. After 3 decades together, one night of something different shouldn't be so terrifying. I'll spend the next 2 weeks making sure he knows how much I love him, and when I come back, I'll remind him he's my world. Brandy smiled, her confidence bolstering my shaky resolve. Exactly, Mom. Dad's a wonderful man. He'll understand, and it'll strengthen what you already have. Now I've got to run. Mike's waiting for me at home. Dinner doesn't make itself. Thanks, sweetheart, I said, a small smile creeping onto my face. Oh, and tell Mike I said hello. Are you two finally going to give me a grandchild? Brandy laughed as she grabbed her bag. Soon, Mom. We've talked about it. And we're planning to start trying in a few months. She kissed my cheek and left, the sound of the door clicking shut, leaving the house in a still silence. I wandered into the art studio Jason had lovingly built for me years ago. The space had become my sanctuary, though recently it felt like a cage, creativity stifled by the weight of my indecision. Sitting down at the easel, I stared at the blank canvas before me, the untouched brushes taunting me from the table. For weeks, my inspiration had been blocked, guilt and uncertainty strangling any spark I might have had. But as I sat there, Brandy's words began to echo in my mind, chipping away at the wall of doubt. Almost without thinking, I reached for a brush. My hand moved across the canvas in bold, sweeping strokes, colors spilling into vibrant shapes. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was creating something again. It felt liberating, like I was doing something just for me. In that quiet moment, I whispered to myself, Jason loves me. He always has. He might be upset, but I'll make him see this doesn't change how much he means to me. That evening, I decided to take things a step further. After a long, relaxing shower, I carefully styled my hair, applied makeup, and slipped into the baby doll nightgown Jason had always loved. A pair of high heels completed the look, adding a touch of confidence I hadn't felt in years. When Jason walked through the door, I greeted him with a warm smile and led him straight to the bedroom, surprising him with a spark of spontaneity we hadn't shared in ages. Maggie, this is the best welcome I've had in years, Jason said, his grin lighting up the room. Do you mean that? I teased, unable to hide my own smile. Absolutely, he said, pulling me close. I didn't realize how much I missed this. His words melted the last of my doubts. That night, we rediscovered a connection we'd let slip away. Over the next 2 weeks, we grew closer than ever, sharing laughter, closeness, and moments that felt like falling in love all over again. Jason seemed like a new man, brimming with life and joy, and I was happier than I'd been in years. Eventually, I began questioning the need for the date with Alexander. One evening, I confided in Brandy, voicing my uncertainty. I don't think I need to go through with this anymore, I admitted. Your dad and I have reconnected so beautifully. That's wonderful, Mom, she said thoughtfully. But don't make a decision just yet. Keep enjoying this time with Dad, but stay open to the idea. You might regret passing up the opportunity. Maybe, I said, weighing her words. Remind me again about Alexander. I know he's your friend's father, but tell me more about his story. Brandy's voice softened. Alexander's wife, Mary, passed away after a long battle with a brain tumor. She was his whole world, and after she died, he withdrew from everything, his family, his friends, even himself. For years, he's been stuck in that grief. When I suggested he try dating again, he said he didn't even know where to start. Her eyes brightened as she continued. When I mentioned you, something changed. He smiled for the first time in years. He said you seemed amazing and wanted to meet you. I think you could really help each other, Mom. Her words stayed with me, echoing in my thoughts as the date drew closer, stirring a mix of excitement and guilt. Texting with Alexander had an unexpected thrill. It was playful and exhilarating, awakening a flutter in my chest I hadn't experienced in years. Yet each evening I devoted myself completely to Jason, showering him with affection and attention, as though trying to balance the conflicting emotions churning within me.
I couldn't seem to stop smiling lately. Everything felt lighter, like a burden I hadn't even noticed was gone. Maggie, my wife of 30 years, seemed transformed too. She moved with a spark I hadn't seen in years, a passion that reminded me of the early days of our marriage. It was as if we were rediscovering one another, exploring a connection that was deeper, yet somehow brand new. She seemed overjoyed, caught in a moment that exceeded even her wildest dreams. I thought I couldn't be happier until everything unraveled. That evening, I walked into the kitchen carrying 24 roses, a bottle of wine, and a box of chocolates. To my surprise, Brandy, our only child, was sitting at the table. She looked up as I entered, and I felt the same rush of pride I always did when I saw her. Brandy had grown into an incredible young woman, strong and compassionate, someone I was proud to call my daughter. I sometimes regretted not spending more time with her while she was growing up. Work had always demanded so much of me, but I'd done my best to provide for her and Maggie, to give them a good life, and I thought I'd been there when it mattered most. "Brandy, what a nice surprise," I said, setting the gifts down on the table. "What are you doing here? And where's your mom?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "I have a big surprise for her tonight. I'm taking her on a 7-day cruise aboard the new yacht, love. She's going to be thrilled. Don't say a word. I want it to be a surprise." Brandy didn't respond immediately. Instead, she gave me a look I couldn't quite decipher. There was something in her eyes, hesitation, maybe even fear. "Dad," she said softly, her voice carrying an uncharacteristic tremor. Hearing her tone, I felt a pang of worry. It reminded me of when she was little, sitting on my lap and struggling to tell me something that upset her. But this wasn't a child's confession. There was something deeper here, something that chilled me before she even said the words. "What's wrong?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "Is everything okay with your mom?" Brandy's hands trembled as she took a breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mom's fine," she said quickly, though her tone betrayed her words. "But we need to talk." I pulled out a chair and sat across from her, trying to steady myself as dread crept into my chest. "Okay," I said carefully. "What's going on?" She hesitated, then started speaking, her words faltering. "You know how much Mom loves you, right?" she began. "She's been telling me how happy she's been lately, how much better things have felt between you two." "Yes," I said, nodding. "And I love her too. That's why I'm doing all this tonight, to show her how much I care." I gestured toward the roses and tickets, hoping to lighten whatever was weighing on her. Brandy's tears finally spilled over, and she looked away before meeting my eyes again. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "But Mom's on a date." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stared at her, my mind refusing to process what I'd just heard. "What?" I managed, my voice barely audible. "What are you talking about?" "She loves you, Dad," Brandy said, her voice breaking. "But she's out with someone else tonight. She couldn't tell you herself, so she asked me to. She didn't want to hurt you, but it's just for one night. She'll be back tomorrow." I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" I asked, my voice rising. "Your mother would never betray me like this. We've been closer than ever. This doesn't make any sense." "Dad, please," Brandy said, trying to calm me. "Mom loves you. She just needed something different, something she felt was missing. She told me it wouldn't change how much she loves you. She thought it might even make things better." I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "Why are you involved in this?" I demanded. This is between your mother and me. She had no right to drag you into it. Dad, Brandy said hesitantly, Mom and I are close. We tell each other everything. She confided in me that she felt unwanted, like things had gotten stale. My friend's dad, he's been lonely since his wife passed. They connected and I introduced them. You what? I shouted, my anger boiling over. You introduced them? You set your mother up with another man? What on earth were you thinking? I was trying to help, Brandy said weakly, tears streaming down her face. It sounds bad, but I thought it was what Mom needed. I didn't mean for it to hurt you. Help? I snapped. Help who? Certainly not me. Where is she now? What did you mean she won't be home until tomorrow? She's at a restaurant, Brandy admitted quietly. I don't know which one. After dinner, they're spending the night together, but only this once. She'll be back tomorrow. The betrayal crashed over me in waves. So all her affection these past weeks was just her trying to cover her tracks? I said bitterly. She's throwing everything away for this? She's not throwing anything away, Brandy sobbed. She loves you. She just needed this. Please try to understand. I stared at her, the weight of the betrayal twisting inside me. When I finally spoke, my voice was ice cold. Brandy, I think you should leave. Now. Dad, go, I said sharply. You and your mother have made your choices. Now I need to make mine. Brandy sat at the table, her shoulders shaking as sobs racked her body. She buried her face in her hands, her voice muffled as she cried, Dad, please don't say that. I love you, and I don't want to leave. Mom and I planned for me to stay tonight so you wouldn't be alone. I looked at her, my anger simmering just below the surface, threatening to boil over. Brandy, I said, my tone cold and measured. Your actions tonight have made me question whether you ever truly respected me as a father. You are so much like your mother, cut from the same cloth. For years, I worked tirelessly to give you both the life you deserved. I sacrificed my time, my dreams, and my energy for this family. And this is my reward? Betrayal? Humiliation? I've clearly been nothing more than a provider to you two. Respect? Love? Apparently those were never part of the equation. Brandy lifted her tear-streaked face, her lips trembling as she whispered, Dad, I love you. Please don't say that. Let Mom explain everything tomorrow. You've had 30 beautiful years together. I know you love her. Please, just give her this one thing and she won't leave you. She loves you. I shook my head, my voice growing louder with every word. She might have her one thing, or two, or 1,000, but she will never have me again. Forgiveness? That's out of the question. And as for this lonely man who thought it was acceptable to go after a married woman, he'll face consequences too. Now leave me. You've shown me exactly where your loyalties lie. You still have your mother, and nothing will change for the two of you. You're a perfect match. As far as I'm concerned, Brandy, you are no longer my daughter. Get out of my sight. She rose slowly, her body trembling, tears streaming down her face. She looked at me one last time as if searching for some glimmer of understanding or forgiveness. When none came, she turned and bolted out of the house, the door slamming shut behind her, the sound echoing like a final nail in the coffin of our relationship. I stood motionless, the silence around me thick and suffocating. For the first time, Brandy might have realized just how far she'd gone. Helping her mother in this absurd scheme was a decision she couldn't undo. While I hoped she understood the consequences of her actions, I didn't care in that moment. The betrayal from Maggie and Brandy felt like a blow to the chest, leaving me dazed and unable to process it, and truthfully, I didn't want to. The moment she left, I grabbed my phone and dialed Maggie's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again and again with the same result. My frustration grew into fury as I left message after message, pleading for her to call me to come home. When the calls failed, I turned to text messages, pouring out every ounce of my anger, heartbreak, and desperation in a futile attempt to make her see the destruction she was causing. But nothing, no response. By 2 a.m, I knew she wasn't coming back. She hadn't even acknowledged me. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the television, though I wasn't watching anything. The noise served as a meaningless distraction from the storm in my mind. My entire world had collapsed in a single evening. I couldn't stop thinking about the 30 years we'd spent together, the life we'd built, the love we'd shared. I thought about Brandy's birth, her childhood milestones, her wedding day. I remembered Maggie and I standing together, proud of the family we'd created, believing it was unshakable. Even in recent years, our closeness had been consistent, if routine. We still made love a few times a week, always ending the night with whispered, "I love yous," as we fell asleep in each other's arms. It wasn't fiery passion anymore, but it felt real, or so I'd thought. My eyes drifted to the window where the faint outline of Maggie's art studio was visible in the moonlight. I had built that studio for her 2 decades ago, pouring my time and effort into creating a space where she could thrive. It had become her sanctuary, filled with her paintings and sculptures, many of which had won awards. I'd been so proud of her, dedicating an entire room in our house to showcase her achievements. But now, that studio represented everything I'd sacrificed: time, love, energy, only for her to throw it all away. Fueled by a mix of booze and anger, I began pacing the house, my mind spinning with dark thoughts. The more I stared at that studio, the more it became a symbol of everything Maggie had destroyed. I couldn't sit still any longer. My sadness had turned into something else entirely, a determination to act. One by one, I began hauling Maggie's belongings into the studio. Her designer shoes, her expensive dresses, her jewelry, all of it went onto a growing pile in the center of her so-called sanctuary. I scoured the house, dragging down photo albums, wedding pictures, even keepsakes from the attic. Her wedding dress, Brandy's baby clothes, everything that once held sentimental value now felt meaningless. By the time dawn broke, the studio was packed with a mountain of memories I no longer cared about. I gave myself a deadline: 6 a.m. If Maggie hadn't returned by then, I would finish what I'd started. When the clock struck 6:05, my patience snapped. I grabbed a can of gasoline from the garage and drenched the pile, letting the fuel soak into the walls. My hand shook as I struck a match. I hesitated for only a moment before tossing it onto the studio floor. The flames roared to life, consuming everything in their path. I stood outside, watching as the fire raged, the heat stinging my skin. Smoke billowed into the sky, a visible symbol of my heartbreak and fury. When the flames grew too intense, I turned away, climbed into my truck, and drove off. My thoughts raced, but my heart felt unbearably heavy. Tears streamed down my face as I grasped the magnitude of what I'd done. By the time I reached a highway motel nearly 100 miles away, I was running on fumes. I paid in cash, not wanting to be found, and collapsed onto the bed. Exhaustion finally overtook me. When I woke around noon, I turned on my phone only to be bombarded with dozens of missed calls and messages. Brandy, Maggie, even the sheriff. The weight of that night crashed down on me all over again. There was no going back. My life, as I had known it, was gone forever.
As I stepped out of the Uber, a wave of nervous energy washed over me. My heart raced as I spotted Alexander waiting near the restaurant's entrance. He was undeniably attractive, his confident smile and relaxed posture instantly drawing my attention. Dressed sharply, he exuded a charm that made my pulse quicken. I had taken extra care with my appearance. My sleek black dress hugged my figure, sheer tights accentuated my legs, and my high heels added a touch of sophistication. Earlier that day, I'd spent hours perfecting my hair and makeup, determined to make this evening unforgettable for both of us. Alexander's eyes lit up as he saw me approach, his gaze lingering appreciatively on my outfit and the hint of skin revealed by the neckline of my dress. I felt his approval in the way he subtly adjusted his posture, and an unexpected surge of confidence bubbled up within me. Smiling, I leaned in to greet him with a light kiss on the cheek. His cologne was warm and inviting, a perfect complement to the spark of chemistry between us. We exchanged pleasantries before moving to the bar, settling onto the stools as the evening began. As we talked, I caught him stealing glances at my legs and the hem of my dress. His subtle yet undeniable interest made me feel desired in a way I hadn't felt in years. Smiling to myself, I decided to let go of my reservations. I silenced my phone and slipped it into my purse. Tonight was about living in the moment, free from distractions. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, peppered with flirtatious remarks and laughter. Alexander's easy charm and attentive demeanor drew me in, and I found myself touching his arm as I spoke, leaning closer than I usually would. It felt exhilarating, like rediscovering a side of myself I'd long forgotten. With each passing moment, I became more immersed in the energy between us, fully embracing the woman I'd kept hidden for so long. After our second drink, the hostess approached to escort us to our table. She led us to a cozy, dimly lit corner of the restaurant where the ambiance felt intimate and perfect. The meal was exquisite, but it was Alexander's company that captivated me. He listened intently, his blue eyes never straying far from mine, and his witty comments kept me smiling. At one point, he leaned in and asked in a low, teasing voice, "Do you still want to spend the night with me?" Instead of answering, I responded with a playful gesture. Slipping off one of my heels, I slid my foot under the table, brushing it gently against his leg. His eyes widened as he glanced down, catching sight of my red-painted toenails through the sheer fabric of my tights. A slow, knowing smile spread across his face, and he murmured, "It's time we go." Hand in hand, we left the restaurant, the cool night air heightening the electricity between us. He led me to his hotel, where he'd booked a room in advance. As the elevator ascended, reality crept in, and for a fleeting moment, thoughts of Jason flickered in my mind. Alexander must have sensed my hesitation because he pulled me close, his strong arms grounding me. His kiss was deep and consuming, dissolving my doubts as if they'd never existed. In that instant, I chose to surrender to the night, to the moment, and to him. Inside the room, Alexander wasted no time. He unzipped my dress, letting it pool around my feet as he took in the sight of me. His appreciative gaze and gentle touch made me feel both beautiful and desired. He whispered softly as he undressed me further, his words igniting a heat I hadn't felt in years. When he laid me on the bed, every movement was deliberate, filled with care and passion. The night unfolded in a way I could never have imagined. Alexander's touch was confident yet tender, and his kisses left me breathless. He even asked me to put my heels back on, confessing how much he loved the look. His request was thrilling, making me feel daring and alive. As we made love, his intensity swept me away, leaving no room for guilt or second thoughts. In that moment, it was just us, lost in the electricity of our connection. At one point, Alexander looked deeply into my eyes and whispered, "I love you, Maggie." His words caught me off guard, stirring something raw and vulnerable inside me. Tears welled up as I absorbed the depth of the experience. It felt transformative, almost sacred. We didn't stop at once. The passion reignited again and again, each encounter more profound than the last. By morning, as the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains, reality began to return. The memories of Jason and the life we shared resurfaced, accompanied by an ache of guilt. Alexander, however, remained tender. Stroking my hair, he spoke softly. "Maggie, I meant what I said. You're incredible, sensual, strong, and captivating. I want to see you again. Can we make this happen?" I hesitated, knowing the truth was unavoidable. "Alexander," I began carefully, "this has been the most incredible experience of my life, and you are an amazing man. But I'm married, and this was a one-time thing. I can't do this again. I'll treasure tonight forever, but my place is with Jason." He held my gaze, his expression equal parts hopeful and understanding. "Think about it," he urged gently. "I can bring so much happiness into your life. If you ever change your mind, I'll be here." "I'll think about it," I promised, though deep down I knew my answer wouldn't change. He kissed me once more, and for a brief moment, I allowed myself to imagine a life where this was possible. As I left the room, the weight of my decisions settled over me. I couldn't deny the beauty of what I'd experienced, but I knew my heart and loyalty belonged to Jason. Now, all I could hope was that I could find a way to reconcile the choices I'd made with the life I still wanted to keep. After breakfast at the hotel, Alexander drove me home. As I turned on my phone for the first time since last night, a barrage of missed calls and messages flooded my screen. One message from Jason stood out, tugging painfully at my conscience. The thought of him suffering while I was absent made my chest tighten with guilt. My eyes brimmed with tears as I realized that his pain was my doing. Before I could scroll further, the phone began to ring. It was Brandy. "Mom, where are you?" she asked, her voice frantic. "I'm on my way home now," I replied, my stomach nodding. "What's wrong?" "Mom," she began shakily. There was a fire at the house. We tried calling you all night, but your phone was off." "A fire?" I gasped, the word catching in my throat. "Is your dad okay? Where is he?" "That's the thing," she said, her voice breaking. "He's missing. Nobody's heard from him, and he's not answering his phone. I have a terrible feeling about this." "I'll be there soon," I said quickly. "Stay put. I'll call you back." As Alexander turned onto our street, my heart sank. Fire trucks and police vehicles crowded the driveway. From the front, the house looked intact, but a heavy sense of dread pressed down on me. I stepped out of the car and approached a firefighter standing nearby. "Excuse me, I'm Maggie Spencer, the homeowner. What happened?" My voice trembled as I spoke. The firefighter glanced at me, then at Alexander, before responding. "Mrs. Spencer, most of the house was spared, but there's significant smoke damage. You won't be able to stay here until it's cleaned up. The worst of it was in the small cottage behind the house. It's completely destroyed. I'm sorry." "My studio?" I whispered, the words barely escaping my lips. "It's gone?" He nodded solemnly. "I'm afraid so. There's nothing left but ashes. We'll investigate the cause, but in the meantime, a detective needs to speak with you." The weight of his words hit me like a blow. My legs gave out and Alexander caught me, guiding me to sit on the curb. Tears streamed down my face as I stared at the smoldering remains of my studio, the place where I'd poured my heart into my art. It was all gone. I barely noticed Detective Wilson approach until he spoke. "Mrs. Spencer, do you have any idea what happened here?" "No," I stammered, shaking my head. "I wasn't home last night. I don't know anything about it." His eyes flicked to Alexander. "And you are?" he asked. "Just a friend," Alexander replied uneasily. The detective's expression hardened as he turned back to me. "Where is your husband, Mrs. Spencer?" "I don't know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And where were you last night?" I hesitated, then answered reluctantly. "I was downtown, at the Hilton, with Alexander." His raised eyebrows and the exchanged glances between him and his colleague made my stomach churn. I had just admitted to being with another man while my husband was unaccounted for. The implications were damning. "Mrs. Spencer," the detective continued, "are you and your husband separated? Do you know where he might have been?" "No," I said quickly, my cheeks burning. "We're not separated. We're happily married." The words sounded hollow even to me, given the circumstances. "When you hear from him, have him call me," the detective said, handing me his card. "We'll need to ask him some questions." As he walked away, I was left grappling with a storm of emotions: grief for the loss of my studio, anger at the devastation of my sanctuary, and fear over Jason's disappearance. The possibility that he could be involved in this nightmare sent a chill through me. I called Brandy. "Have you heard from your dad?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "No," she said, frustration lacing her tone. "Why weren't you here last night, Mom? You promised you'd be here with him." I was about to respond when she added in a whisper, "He threw me out. He told me I wasn't his daughter anymore." Her words hit me like a blow to the chest. Jason had always been a loving father. For him to say something so cruel was completely out of character. What had I done to push him to this point? Inside the house, the stench of smoke clung to everything, and the walls bore dark stains from the fire. It was clear that living here was impossible for the time being. As I moved through the rooms to gather a few things, dread settled over me. Entering the bedroom, I froze. Every trace of me was gone: my clothes, my shoes, my personal belongings. Even the wedding rings I'd left on the nightstand were missing. A sickening realization crept over me. Jason must have taken everything. Did he think I had abandoned him? Had he destroyed my things in a fit of anger? My knees buckled under the weight of my own guilt and fear. I rushed back to the studio, sifting through the charred remains. Among the ashes, I found scorched fragments of paintings, melted frames, and singed fabric. It was clear that Jason hadn't just left. He had erased me from his life. Overwhelmed, I called Brandy again, my voice breaking. "Brandy, I can't stay here. I have nowhere to go." Alexander, who had been silently watching, stepped closer. "You can stay with me," he offered gently. But I couldn't face him. Not now. "I need to be alone," I said sharply. Hurt flashed across his face, but he nodded and left without another word. As I stood amidst the ruins of my life, tears streaming down my face, I felt utterly lost. Everything I had built, everything I had loved, seemed to be slipping through my fingers. At that moment, I was consumed by anger at myself and at Alexander. Deep down, I knew the blame was mine alone, but it was easier to resent him for the role he'd played in my betrayal. I hated myself for what I had done, for the selfish choices that had led to this moment. Through choked sobs, I turned to Brandy. "I've lost your father," I said, my voice breaking. "Don't say that, Mom," Brandy replied, her tone gentle but strained. "Dad loves you. He always has." "He burned everything, Brandy," I cried. "All my clothes, my art, my studio, everything is gone. He didn't leave me a single thing, not even a place to stay. He won't answer my calls. I've hurt him so deeply, and I don't blame him for being furious. What I did to him was unforgivable. I shouldn't have gone on that date. I should have told him how I felt instead. We could have found a way to work through it. But my selfishness ruined everything. If I were him, I wouldn't forgive me either. What do I do now? I have no home, no clothes, nothing." Brandy's voice wavered as she tried to reassure me. "Mom, you can't shoulder all the blame. I'm at fault too. You can stay with us until everything is sorted out. This afternoon we'll go shopping for clothes and figure out the next steps." I shook my head, my voice trembling. "Brandy, it's not just the house. It's everything. All my paintings, sculptures, years of work, they're all gone. 30 years of marriage, 2 decades of my life's passion. It's all destroyed, and now I'm completely alone. I don't even know what I'm living for anymore." I broke down, collapsing under the weight of grief, as neighbors watched from the street. Then, as if the universe were twisting the knife, my phone began to ring. Seeing Jason's name on the screen made my heart stop. With trembling hands, I answered, desperate for a lifeline. "Jason, is that you?" I asked, breathless and hopeful. His voice came through, cold and detached. "How are you, Maggie?" he asked flatly. "Jason, please, where are you? We need to talk," I begged, trying to steady my voice. "No, Maggie," he said sharply. "There's nothing left to talk about. I know everything. Brandy told me, and let me be clear. She's your daughter, not mine. As far as I'm concerned, you're both dead to me. This will be the last time we speak." "Jason, no, don't say that," I cried. "I love you. You have to know that. Please come home so we can talk. The studio is gone. Did you do this?" His voice grew harsher. "Maggie, I didn't burn the studio. You did. Maybe not with your hands, but with your betrayal. When I saw your wedding rings abandoned on the dresser and knew you had given yourself to another man, you ceased to exist to me. You destroyed everything we had. And Brandy's involvement? It's beyond comprehension. I'm done. I'll meet with the lawyers on Monday to start the divorce." "Jason, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "We've spent 30 amazing years together. You can't just throw that away." "Maggie," he said, his tone ice cold, "you threw it away. You planned this, manipulated me into 2 weeks of affection just to ease your guilt before you cheated on me, with our daughter's help. It was cruel and unforgivable. No one could accept that kind of betrayal. I hope you regret this for the rest of your life. Don't contact me again. Speak to me through my lawyer." "Jason, no, wait, Jason!" I screamed into the phone, but the line went dead. Just like that, the man I loved and the life we had built was gone. I collapsed onto the ground, clutching the phone as sobs racked my body. Brandy arrived moments later and pulled me into her arms. Together, we cried over the loss of everything: my marriage, my home, and the world I had cherished. When we arrived at Brandy's house, she explained the situation to her husband, Mike. His reaction was immediate and explosive. "Brandy, you encouraged your mom to go on a date with another man?" he shouted, his voice thick with disbelief. "And you left your father alone? What were you thinking? Did you honestly believe he would just be okay with this? What kind of man would ever accept something like that? Is this how you'll treat me when we're older? Betray me the way your mom betrayed your dad? Jason was a good man. You and your mom were everything to him, and you destroyed him." Brandy stood frozen, her face pale as his anger continued to pour out. Mike's voice softened but remained firm. "I'll be calling Jason to apologize for what you've done. As for us, We need to talk, seriously talk, about where we go from here. I can't pretend this hasn't shaken me. Having kids with you? That's off the table until I'm sure I understand your values, because I won't tolerate anything like this in my own marriage." His words hit Brandy hard. She hadn't fully considered the deeper consequences of her actions until now. To her, it had been a single harmless night after years of marriage. But as she faced the reality of what her choices had unleashed, she realized the magnitude of the damage. Her parents' marriage was over, her family shattered, and her own relationship with Mike now hung by a thread. The consequences of her decisions were only beginning to unfold, and they would haunt all of us for a long time to come.
5 days after everything collapsed, I returned home to face the aftermath. I decided against involving insurance. The hassle wasn't worth it. During a meeting with my lawyer, I made one thing clear. The house was non-negotiable in the divorce. Maggie could take half of our savings, but I refused to pay child support. If she pushed back, I'd expose her affair with Brandy's friend's father. The divorce was already underway. I'd also consulted a criminal defense attorney about burning down the studio. Since I owned the property and wasn't filing an insurance claim, the risk of criminal charges was low. At most, I might face a fine. Relieved, I turned my focus to moving on from Maggie and rebuilding my life. Walking through the house, I surveyed the fire damage, estimating the cost of repairs. In one of the bedrooms, as I examined the walls, I heard the front door creak open. Brandy's voice echoed down the hall. "Dad, are you here?" she called, her tone urgent and shaky. I stayed silent, staring out the window at the ash pile that had been Maggie's art studio. A grim satisfaction settled over me. Brandy's footsteps grew louder until she appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She ran to me, wrapping her arms around me. "Daddy, please forgive us," she sobbed. "We love you. I love you. Don't shut us out." I stiffened, stepping back to free myself from her grip. My voice was cold. "Brandy, I've told you, I'll never forgive either of you. Your betrayal is something I'll carry forever. Now leave." "No," she said, shaking her head despite her tears. "You're my father. You love me. You can't just erase me." I met her gaze, my expression unyielding. "You're wrong. I don't have a daughter anymore. The person who betrayed me isn't my child. Leave." Her voice cracked as she pleaded again. "Mom needs you. She cries all the time and regrets everything. She knows she made a mistake. Please talk to her." I shook my head, unmoved. "Never." She ended our marriage the moment she left her wedding rings on the table and spent the night with someone else. It's over. You and your mother can reach me through my lawyer. I'm changing my number today. Her voice broke. "You're really throwing away 30 years of marriage." "No, Brandy," I said sharply. "Your mother threw it away when she chose someone else. Both of you destroyed everything we built, and I'll never forgive that. Now get out of my house." Her face crumpled as fresh tears spilled. Without another word, she turned and ran, her sobs echoing down the hallway. The door slammed, leaving the house in silence. Brandy's pain was evident, but it paled compared to my own. Supporting Maggie's betrayal had crossed a line, and there was no undoing the damage. I wasn't ready to process it, let alone forgive. The next day, Maggie was served divorce papers. She was devastated, realizing the full extent of what she had lost. She tried to fight it, suggesting counseling and reaching out to me, but I ignored every attempt. From that moment on, I never spoke to her or Brandy again. Even Mike, Brandy's husband, called me in disbelief. "I can't believe what they did to you," he said. "It's making me question everything about my marriage to Brandy. If she can betray you, how can I trust her?" He admitted he was unsure about their future, especially having children. Counseling helped, but their marriage remained strained. Maggie's life fell apart. After the house was repaired, she wanted to move back in, but the divorce left it in my name. Instead, she ended up in a small apartment, working at an art gallery to survive. Her days of creative freedom and comfort were over. The life we had built was gone, reduced to distant memories. All of it, our love, our home, our future, was destroyed for a fleeting moment of excitement. No amount of regret or tears could change that. Sleepless nights haunted her as she grappled with the consequences of her choices. A few months after restoring the house, I sold it and moved away. Maggie, unaware of the sale, visited one day, hoping to see me, only to find strangers living there. It was the final blow, closing that chapter of her life for good.
When I rang the doorbell, a young couple answered. They seemed happy and content, a sharp contrast to the chaos inside me. The woman smiled warmly. "Hello, how can we help you?" she asked. I hesitated, swallowing hard. "I'm looking for Jason Spencer. Is he here?" Their expressions softened with recognition. "Oh, you mean the man who sold us this house?" the woman replied. Her words hit me like a blow. "No, he said he was leaving the country to start a new life. He was so kind and helpful." The pit in my stomach deepened. "Are you Maggie?" she asked. "Yes," I whispered. "He left an envelope for you," she said, stepping back into the house. Moments later, she returned and handed me a sealed letter. "He asked us to give this to you if you ever came by." I gripped the envelope tightly. "Thank you," I murmured, holding back tears. "Good luck, and enjoy this lovely home." Tears spilled down my cheeks as I walked back to my car. Sitting in the driver's seat, I clutched the envelope, the last connection to Jason. He was gone. Truly gone. The weight of that reality hit me harder than I thought possible. I had destroyed 30 years of love for one selfish night. What had I done? Back at my apartment, the emptiness echoed my despair. Sitting on the bed, trembling, I opened the envelope. Jason's familiar handwriting brought fresh tears as I read. "Maggie, 30 amazing years. I'll always cherish the life we shared. You were my first and only love, and I'm sorry I failed you as a husband. If I had known you needed more, I would have moved heaven and earth to provide it. But since you chose a different path, this is how our marriage ends, apart. Those 2 wonderful weeks before your betrayal made me believe you had fallen in love with me again. They were the happiest of my life. But when Brandy revealed how you used those moments to distract me, it shattered me. You probably know I planned a special night that evening. A surprise with roses, your favorite chocolates and wine. I wanted to celebrate us and gift you something meaningful, a new cruise on the yacht. When I learned your affection was fake and your true goal was to be with another man, I was utterly humiliated. You've succeeded, Maggie, in destroying me and our marriage. I can't stay in this city anymore. I've left my job and started over in another country. Don't try to find me. I've gone offline and have no interest in speaking to you or Brandy again. This chapter is closed and I'm moving on. It will take years to recover from the pain you both caused me. I couldn't stay in that home without the love of my life or my daughter. Since you're both gone to me, I have no reason to remain. I hope your night was worth it. Enjoy the memories you'll share with your daughter. Have a good life, Maggie. Forget me, as I have forgotten you. My new life begins now. J.S. By the time I finished reading, the tears I thought had dried long ago flowed freely, soaking my pillow as I curled into a ball. His words cut deeper than I could have imagined. The fleeting thrill of that one night now felt like a distant, bitter regret, replaced by overwhelming sorrow. I had destroyed everything. Jason's love, our life, the home we built. All for one moment of selfish indulgence. Now, at 52, I was alone. A shadow of the woman I once was, haunted by my choices. The future without Jason stretched ahead, empty and bleak. I had traded a life of love and meaning for a brief thrill, and the cost was more than I could bear.
Late one night, I stood outside Alexander's house, gripping a cold crowbar. It wasn't a decision I made lightly, but after everything he had done to ruin my life, this confrontation felt inevitable. When the door opened, I forced my way inside. Alexander froze, startled by my presence and the anger written across my face. "Who are you?" he asked, stepping back cautiously. "Jason," I said evenly. "The husband of the woman you stole." His face shifted, a mix of fear and surprise. Raising his hands defensively, he stammered, "I thought Maggie was okay with it. I swear, I didn't know." "Save it," I snapped, stepping closer. "You knew she was married. You knew she was mine, and you didn't care." Before he could reply, months of rage and humiliation surged to the surface. I acted. The crowbar struck hard, and he crumpled to the floor, but I didn't stop. Each blow released the fury I had carried for too long. When I finally stopped, Alexander lay on the ground, visibly shaken and injured, his posture reflecting the aftermath of the altercation. I crouched down, locking eyes with him as he whimpered. "Here's some advice," I said coldly. "Messing with a married woman is bad for your health." I walked out, wiping my hands on my jeans, and climbed into the waiting Uber. As we headed to the airport, I felt neither regret nor satisfaction, just closure. By the time Alexander reached the hospital and contacted the police, I was already on a plane to my new life in Maui, Ecuador. The authorities took 2 weeks to realize I had left the country. It didn't matter. Ecuador doesn't extradite for attack, and I had no intention of returning. Alexander would have to live with the aftermath of his choices, just as I had endured the fallout of Maggie's betrayal. From what I heard, he spent weeks in the hospital and months in physical therapy, learning to walk again. The 25 stitches on his face would forever remind him of his actions. Meanwhile, I started fresh. With over $750,000 from selling my house and savings, my beachfront apartment in Ecuador would sustain me for life. 6 months later, I sat on a beach in Puerto Lopez, beer in hand, watching the waves. For the first time in ages, I felt at peace. Breakups happen. Divorce is normal. What isn't normal is staying in a place where you're not valued. Maggie's life had unraveled. She ended up in a tiny apartment, working at an art gallery to make ends meet. Brandy, her co-conspirator, faced her own struggles. Her husband nearly divorced her, but eventually stayed, though it took years for him to trust her again. None of it mattered to me. Sitting on that beach, I knew one thing for sure. My past was behind me. I had burned the bridges that tethered me to a life of betrayal and pain. My future was mine to build, and it looked brighter than ever.